You know, there's this classic image from the Peanuts comic strip.
Oh, yeah, with Charlie Brown.
Exactly. Every single time he runs up to kick the football, he's got like a full head of steam. He is fully committed. And right at the last possible millisecond, Lucy pulls it away.
And he goes flying.
Right, landing flat on his back. But the crazy thing is, every single time, he genuinely believes this is the moment he's finally going to kick it.
Which is honestly the exact emotional state of the England national football team right now heading into a World Cup.
It really is. I mean, we are staring down the barrel of the 2026 World Cup in North America. And for England, this marks exactly 60 years of hurt.
6 decades. That is a long time.
6 decades since they lifted the trophy in 1966. And you can just feel it happening all over again. The fan base is hyping themselves up, genuinely believing that under Thomas Tuchel, the football isn't going to get pulled away this time.
It's a fascinating moment in modern sports psychology, honestly. But more importantly, it's just a fascinating moment in tactical evolution.
Which is exactly the core mission for you and me on this deep dive today. We have pulled together this incredibly rich stack of sources to try and figure out if that optimism is actually warranted based on the data.
Right, because feelings don't win tournaments.
Exactly. So we're looking at deep tactical breakdowns from Tactical Football Analysis and Sports Illustrated. We've got breaking news reports from The Guardian and The Independent.
And we also pulled some really interesting AI match predictions from NY Sports Day.
Yeah, those are wild. And crucial to understanding the mood of the fans, we've got the raw, unfiltered pulse of the fan base over on Reddit. So we are going to completely dissect Thomas Tuchel's radical tactical overhaul, his frankly shocking 26-man squad, and map out their exact mathematical path to global glory.
Assuming that path isn't just, a total dead end.
Right. So let me ask you straight away, with the literal weight of 1966 hanging over this team's head, is there empirical evidence in this stack of sources that 2026 will actually play out differently? Or is Thomas Tuchel just the latest manager holding the football for Charlie Brown?
Well, if we strip away the emotion and just look at the underlying data, there's a very strong case that this iteration of the team is structurally different from anything England has produced in decades.
Really? How so?
To understand why, we have to look past the badge on the shirt and examine the tactical revolution Tuchel has implemented since taking over. I mean, this isn't just a change in the starting 11. He has completely rewired England's footballing DNA.
I want to dig right into that rewiring because honestly, the numbers from their qualifying campaign are almost difficult to process.
They're absurd.
8 games played in European qualifying. 8 wins, 0 draws, 0 losses, 22 goals scored, and 0 goals conceded.
Yeah, that last part is the kicker.
They played an entire qualifying campaign without picking the ball out of their own net once. Like, how does that even happen?
It's a statistical anomaly at this level of the sport, it really is. Because European World Cup qualifying is usually this gauntlet where you drop points on a rainy Tuesday somewhere.
Right, against some team you've barely heard of.
Exactly. But they didn't just survive those matches. They completely suffocated the opposition. And the mechanism behind that suffocation is Tuchel's tactical blueprint.
Okay, break that down for us.
So, on paper, if you look at the team sheet they hand to the broadcasters before kickoff, England lines up in a standard 4-2-3-1 formation. 4 defenders, 2 holding midfielders, 3 attacking midfielders, and a striker.
Which is arguably the most common vanilla formation in modern football right now.
It is, but that shape only exists when the ball is dead.
Wait, really?
Yeah. The moment the referee blows the whistle and England gets possession, that shape just dissolves. They immediately morph into a hyper-aggressive 2-3-5 shape.
I have to stop you there. A 2-3-5. Pushing 5 players into the absolute front line. That sounds like a formation from, I don't know, the Victorian era.
I know, it sounds crazy.
How on earth does that function in the modern, highly athletic version of the game?
It functions through highly coordinated, really complex movement, specifically from the fullbacks. Let's look at Nico O'Reilly on the left and Reece James on the right. In a traditional system, those 2 players would hug the touchline and run up and down the wings all game, right?
Yeah, overlaps and crosses.
Under Tuchel, they don't do that at all. Instead, they invert. As soon as England has the ball, O'Reilly and James pinch tightly inside, moving into the center of the midfield to stand right alongside the defensive anchor, Declan Rice.
Wait, so they are completely abandoning the wide defensive areas, just leaving the sidelines totally empty.
They are, because by moving inside, They create this dense three-man foundation right in the middle of the park. Think of it like a boa constrictor tightening around the center circle.
Oh, that's a great image.
Right, and by choking the midfield with bodies, they free up the more attacking midfielders, players like Elliot Anderson or Morgan Rogers.
Ah, I see.
Because Rice, O'Reilly, and James are holding down the center, Anderson and Rogers are given the tactical license to push vertically into the half spaces.
Those are the incredibly dangerous channels between the wingers and the central striker, right?
Exactly. So suddenly you have a solid five-man front line constantly pressing against the opponent's defensive line.
That is a massive shift. But looking at the sources from tactical football analysis, the real magic isn't just what they do when they have the ball.
No, it's what they do without it.
Right. It's what happens the millisecond they lose it. Their pressing metrics are completely off the charts. The sources say they have a PPDA, which stands for passes per defensive action, of just 6.72.
Yeah, that number is the skeleton key to understanding why they didn't concede a single goal in qualifying.
For those listening, the PPDA metric essentially measures how many passes an opponent is allowed to string together before a defending team attempts a tackle, an interception, or commits a foul.
Right, so an average of 6 or 7 passes.
That's nothing.
It really isn't. And to put that in context, that is the most aggressive press of any major European contender heading into this tournament. It's lower than Germany, it's lower than France, and significantly lower than Spain, who sit at 9.16.
So explain the why here. Why is forcing a tackle after just 6 passes structurally devastating to the opponent?
Because it traps them in a state of panic. When a team wins the ball deep in their own half, their players naturally start to spread out to launch a counterattack. They expand their shape.
Right, they try to get big.
Exactly. By aggressively hunting the ball down after just 6 passes, England ensures the opponent never actually gets the time to transition out of their cramped defensive shape.
Wow.
England isn't just trying to win the ball back, they are deliberately trying to win it back, while the opponent's defense is still clumped together and totally disorganized. It basically suffocates the pitch.
Okay, if we accept that premise, it creates a massive contradiction that I really have to push back on.
Let's hear it.
You have this boa constrictor tightening the midfield, right? And you are pushing 5 guys up into the front line. But if that initial counterpress fails, like if an opponent somehow manages to string together 8 or 9 passes and escapes the trap, you have left John Stones and Mark Gay entirely alone at the back.
Yeah, just the two of them.
Just 2 center backs trying to defend the entire width of the pitch. If an opposition midfielder pings a quick 40-yard ball into that empty space on the wing that the fullbacks abandon, aren't Stones and Gahey basically stranded on an island?
Absolutely.
Isn't that defensive transition exposure just begging to be exploited by a fast team?
It absolutely is, and it is the exact high-wire act Tuchel has signed up for. The entire architecture of the team relies on the counterpress succeeding.
And if it doesn't?
If it breaks down, yes, the opponent has a clear runway right at 2 isolated defenders. The system's greatest strength, its suffocating high press, is simultaneously its fatal flaw if a team can bypass it.
Man, that's stressful. Which naturally leads us to the squad selection, because a system that specific, demanding that level of tactical discipline and just raw physical running, requires highly specific cogs.
You can't just plug and play.
Right, you can't just throw any talented player into a 2-3-5 and expect them to understand the spacing. And that reality forced Tuchel to make some brutal, role-specific cuts that practically broke the internet.
He was utterly ruthless. I mean, he prioritized players who fit the exact physical and spatial profiles of his system over big names, past reputations, or even raw talent.
I was scrolling through the 3 Lions subreddit last night, and it is still absolute pandemonium over there.
Oh, I bet.
Let's talk about the Foden and Palmer omissions, because that is what's really driving the fans crazy. Leaving Harry Maguire at home was a shock, sure. He posted that he was shocked and gutted.
Which is tough for him.
It is,
Yeah.
But cutting Phil Foden and Cole Palmer entirely, leaving them completely off the plane?
Yeah, that was the real earthquake.
One user with thousands of upvotes basically compared it to tactical malpractice. If we use a culinary analogy, it feels like a master chef taking the finest, most expensive truffles in the kitchen and tossing them in the bin simply because they clash with a very specific soup he decided to make tonight.
That's actually a great analogy. It feels incredibly counterintuitive to leave game-changing talent at home, especially for a nation that historically craves that creative flair. But Tuchel's reasoning, according to the sources, is rooted entirely in avoiding congestion.
Congestion, like too many players in the same spot.
Exactly. Let's look back at Euro 2024. England suffered from what analysts called the 5 number 10s problem. They had too many players who instinctively wanted to occupy the exact same creative zones in the middle of the pitch.
Oh, right. They were just constantly tripping over each other.
Precisely. It slowed the tempo down and congested all the passing lanes.
Yeah.
Now, Foden and Palmer both had inconsistent or injury-hit club seasons leading up to this, which made the decision slightly easier for Tuchel.
Sure.
But the core reason is structural clarity. By leaving them behind, Tuchel is ensuring that his primary creator, Jude Bellingham, has absolute freedom in the center of the pitch without anyone drifting into his space.
Okay, so who did he bring in to replace those truffles? Because if you are going to alienate the entire fan base, the replacements better be perfect fits for the system.
He brought in players built for raw verticality and high-intensity pressing. Take Elliot Anderson from Nottingham Forest. The reports note he is currently carrying an eye-watering £100 million to £120 million valuation on the transfer market.
Which is an insane price tag.
It is, completely. But it reflects his specific utility. Instead of receiving the ball looking for a cute sideways pass, Anderson receives the ball on the half-turn and immediately drives directly through the center of the pitch.
Oh, so he's very direct.
Very direct. He shatters defensive lines with sheer force. Then you have Nico O'Reilly from Manchester City, who was handed the iconic number 3 shirt.
Right.
That number implies he is the starting left back, but as we discussed earlier, his actual job is to act as a specialized central midfielder in possession.
And then you throw in Morgan Rogers from Aston Villa, who provides this bruising physical power in the attacking third.
Yes. Tuchel has essentially built a team of specialized problem solvers. But this brings us back to the panic on Reddit.
The panic is real.
It is. Because the question is tactical rigidity really worth sacrificing individual brilliance on the world's biggest stage? Think about the reality of tournament football.
Yeah.
When you are down 1-0 in the 85th minute of a World Cup quarterfinal and the opponent has parked the bus, sometimes a rigid system isn't enough. Sometimes you just need a moment of unexplainable magic from a player like Phil Foden.
And he's not there.
Right. Tuchel is betting his legacy that the system itself is the magic.
But you know, while the new kids provide the physical engine for this system, you can't build a World Cup contending team entirely out of specialized rookies.
Of course not.
The whole high wire act still fundamentally hinges on a few irreplaceable elite veterans who actually survived the roster purge.
They are the structural pillars. Without them, the 2-3-5 experiment completely falls apart.
We're talking about Declan Rice, who has to be the absolute anchor in the midfield if the fullbacks are going to push up. You have Jude Bellingham operating as that box-crashing number 10. Jordan Pickford remains the undisputed number 1 in goal. And towering above all of them, you have Harry Kane.
Harry Kane's function in this specific setup cannot be overstated. He is listed as a striker, but he doesn't play like a traditional center forward standing in the penalty box waiting for crosses. He plays as a false 9.
Break down exactly what that means for listeners who might hear false 9 thrown around a lot but aren't quite sure.
Sure. A traditional number 9 pushes up against the center backs and tries to get behind them. A false 9 does the exact opposite. Kane deliberately drops deep, retreating almost into the midfield area.
Oh, okay.
When he does that, the opposing center backs are faced with a terrible choice. Do they follow him up the pitch, which pulls them out of position, or do they let him go, giving one of the best passers in the world free time on the ball?
That's a lose-lose.
It is. Usually they take a step forward to follow him, and the millisecond they do, it creates a massive hole in the defensive line.
And that is exactly where the wingers, like Bukayo Saka and Marcus Rashford, sprint into that vacated space.
Exactly. Kane is the bait, and the wingers are the trap.
It's a brilliantly designed mechanism. And, you know, there is a lot of historic weight on these veterans right now. Kane is actually tying Billy Wright's record of captaining England at 3 separate World Cups.
That's a huge milestone.
It really is. Meanwhile, Jordan Henderson, who the sources indicate was brought in primarily for his dressing room leadership, is equaling Sir Bobby Charlton and Lucy Bronze's records for overall tournament appearances.
That kind of localized experience matters so much in a month-long pressure cooker. You need players who have navigated the emotional roller coaster before. And speaking of navigating pressure, we have to talk about the ultimate wild card selection in this squad, Ivan Toney.
Oh, Toney is a fascinating inclusion. He is currently playing his club football in Saudi Arabia, which naturally raised some eyebrows regarding the intensity of his weekly matches.
Right, the quality of the league.
Yeah, but Tuchel brought him in for a highly specific utility. to cause utter physical chaos late in games against tired legs, and because he possesses a 95% career success rate from the penalty spot.
Look, if you are managing England, a nation whose footballing history is deeply scarred by penalty shootout heartbreak, a 95% success rate is practically a get-out-of-jail-free card.
Totally.
That alone justifies his roster spot.
I completely agree with the penalty logic, but if we look back at the core strategy, I see a glaring vulnerability. I look at Harry Kane like the keystone of a Roman arch.
Okay, how fellow?
All the weight, all the pressure of the 2-3-5 system rests on his specific ability to hold up the ball and drop deep. If you look at the backups on the roster, Ollie Watkins and Ivan Toney, they are fantastic players, but their profiles are entirely different.
Very different.
Watkins is a runner who stretches the line. Toney is a physical target man who wrestles with defenders. So, if Kane rolls an ankle in the group stage, doesn't the entire bespoke system instantly collapse? They have no direct stylistic replacement for the one guy making it all tick.
It is the single most terrifying scenario for England fans. Tuchel has essentially tailored a bespoke suit for a very specific client. If Kane isn't there to wear it, Watkins or Toney will have to put it on, and the suit simply won't fit.
That's going to look ridiculous.
Yeah, the timing of the runs will be off, the passing angles will change, and the midfield won't have that crucial pivot point. It is a massive structural vulnerability.
So let's take all of this, the 2-3-5 shape, the suffocating press, the Foden fallout, and the reliance on Kane, and see what happens when they actually hit the grass.
Let's do it.
Let's map out their path, starting with Group L. They have drawn Croatia, Ghana, and Panama.
The Opta supercomputer simulations have run the numbers, and they give England a heavy 67.76% chance to top that group comfortably.
Now, Ghana brings a tremendous amount of athleticism that could definitely test that high line, and Panama will likely try to sit deep and frustrate them. But the match everyone is circling is the opening game on June 17th in Dallas, England against Croatia.
Oh, there's a mountain of bad blood there.
Stemming all the way back to the 2018 semifinal. NY Sports Day ran this specific matchup through 3 highly advanced AI models, and the contrasting logic between them is genuinely fascinating.
It really highlights how different neural networks weight different types of historical and tactical data. What did they say?
Let's walk through them. First, ChatGPT picks the Croatia plus 1.5 handicap at minus 175.
Okay.
For those who aren't familiar with sports betting terminology, taking the plus 1.5 handicap essentially means the AI is spotting Croatia a goal and a half before the game even kicks off. If Croatia loses by just 1 goal, or draws, or wins, the bet pays out.
And why is it leaning so heavily toward a tight game?
Its algorithm is weighting the historical conservatism of World Cup opening matches. No team wants to lose their first game and immediately face elimination pressure. Plus, it argues that Croatia's deep, organized defensive block will grind the pace of the game down into the mud, basically preventing a blowout.
That makes sense. It's looking at behavioral precedent. Croatia historically knows exactly how to suffer without the ball, absorb pressure, and frustrate technically superior teams.
Exactly. Then you have Claude, which takes the exact opposite view.
Interesting.
It picks the England money line at minus 145. The money line just means picking a team to win straight up, no point spreads involved. Claude ignores the emotion and looks purely at the math of the structural mismatch.
The data.
Right. It projects an expected goals, or XG, of 1.80 for England, compared to a tiny 0.45 for Croatia. Expected goals is just a metric that measures the quality of scoring chances created.
So Claude is saying?
Claude essentially says, don't overthink the history. England's system generates vastly superior chances.
Claude is putting its faith entirely in the flawless qualifying data and the sheer volume of high-quality chances that the 2-3-5 system is designed to produce.
And finally, Gemini comes in and predicts under 2.5 total goals for the match, giving it a 62% probability. Its reasoning is based purely on defensive stability. England obviously conceded 0 goals in qualifying, and Croatia is notoriously tough to break down in tournament play.
If we synthesize these 3 AI perspectives, they are all essentially predicting variations of the exact same narrative. A grinding, attritional 1-row or 2-1 slugfest.
Which brings up a critical question regarding Tuchel's entire philosophy. If the most advanced predictive models point to a grinding slugfest, doesn't that imply the beautiful, free-flowing 2-3-5 attacking shape is going to hit a brick wall?
That's the fear.
Are we really expecting inverted fullbacks and specialized runners to just waltz through a stubborn Croatian defense marshaled by a 41-year-old Luka Modric who has been dictating the tempo of international matches for a decade.
That is the defining tactical question of the group stage right there. A low, compact defensive block is the natural enemy of Tuchel's system. Because if the opponent doesn't try to press you, the counterpress becomes completely useless.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
If England ends up just passing the ball sideways in a slow U-shape around the Croatian penalty area, they will get absolutely nowhere. For the system to work against a low block, Elliot Anderson and Jude Bellingham have to make incredibly aggressive physical runs to physically drag those Croatian defenders out of position.
And if they don't?
If they don't, you are right. It will just be 90 minutes of hitting a brick wall.
Okay, let's assume they figure out how to pick the lock. They grind past Croatia. They handle Ghana's transition speed. They break down Panama. What does the ultimate road to the July 19th final in New York and New Jersey actually look like?
This is where the sheer logistics of the tournament structure become fascinating. FIFA introduced a new Wimbledon-style seeding advantage for this expanded World Cup.
Which is a massive paradigm shift. It means that because of their high global ranking, if England wins their group, they are mathematically shielded from facing heavyweights like Spain or Argentina until at least the semifinals.
Right.
And they are placed on the opposite side of the bracket from France, meaning they avoid them completely until a potential final.
It's an incredible structural advantage. It theoretically clears the early knockout rounds of the absolute Tier 1 contenders, but easier is doing a lot of heavy lifting there.
Yeah, nothing is really easy.
Exactly. If you map out the likely bracket, their path would force them to play a knockout game against a host nation in Mexico, which will be a fiercely hostile environment, and then potentially face Brazil in the quarterfinals.
Which brings us to the ultimate prognosis from the Opta supercomputer. After crunching millions of data points, simulated matches, and historical trends, the supercomputer gives England a 10.92% chance to win the entire tournament.
Which is a very strong number in a 48-team field, but it still places them third overall in the likelihood of lifting the trophy. Spain is the statistical favorite at 16.23%, closely followed by France at 12.84%.
But the data throws up one specific matchup that everyone is already circling. If the bracket holds, we are looking at a highly anticipated semifinal clash in Atlanta between England and the defending champions, Argentina. And remarkably, the supercomputer marginally favors England to win that specific match, giving them an 18.52% chance of advancing compared to Argentina's 17.82%.
England versus Argentina in a World Cup semifinal. I mean, the deep historical rivalry, the sheer tactical contrast, it would be an absolute spectacle. You would have Argentina's emotional, battle-tested tournament mentality going head-to-head against Tuchel's cold, rigid, high-octane machine.
And it all comes back to Charlie Brown and the football.
Yeah.
For you, the listener, as you settle in to watch this tournament unfold, here is the thought I want to leave you with, something we haven't even touched on yet. If Thomas Tuchel, a German manager who came in, implemented a highly rigid club-level tactical system, ruthlessly cut the fan favorites, and ignored all the emotional pleas of the media, actually manages to win the World Cup for England, does that mark the death of the traditional national team manager?
That is a deep question.
Right. Are we entering an era where international football is no longer about patriotic passion and managing egos, but simply about hiring the coldest, most calculating, tactical mercenary money can buy to install a flawless system?
It would completely redefine how football associations view the international game. It really would.
So when you tune into that opening match against Croatia in Dallas, don't just follow the ball. Watch those inverted fullbacks. Watch Nico O'Reilly and Reece James. If they pinch into the midfield and England suddenly loses possession, watch how fast Croatia attacks that empty space on the wings. Because in that split second, as the ball hangs in the air, you'll know if England is finally going to kick the football or if Lucy is about to pull it away one more time.